There were a lot of people waiting for the Queen of England. They are backroom boys and stars of the film. Everyone was ready and waiting in a line. Mr. Bean is one of backroom boys, but he wasn't here. He was late. Mr. Bean was coming. He stood between a guy and a woman. The woman turned and looked looked at him as though she wanted to ask why you were so late. Mr. Bean probably knew what she meant and he pointed at his watch. He want her he wanted her to know that his watch was slow. He didn't do it on purpose. While waiting in a queue for the Queen of England, Mr. Bean was practicing handshaking and making a bow. He was so excited to see the Queen. He couldn't wait to see the Queen. Then things start to go wrong when Mr. Bean realized that the shoe of the man standing next to him was polished, but his shoe didn't. So he came up with an idea that he was wrapping his shoe against the back of his trouser. But it isn't polished enough. But it wasn't polished enough. He were he cleared his throat and spit it on his shoe. And he kept rubbing his shoe against the back of his trouser. The woman to his right stared at him. Stared at him. She gave him a dirty look, but it didn't a big deal. He kept doing this with the other of the shoe. Then he saw the guy breathe out. Maybe he was checking the freshness of his breath. Mr. Bean also breathed out, and he realized that he had bad mouth. Then he took a mouthwash out of his pocket. He used the freshener spray into his mouth. He didn't do it like normal people. He was overdoing it. He turned around and kept doing it. Both the woman and the guy turned and looked at him. They definitely were curious about what he was doing and what kind of person he was. Yeah, Mr. Bean, he was very childish. After finishing, he was so confident. He was he he definitely was showing off to the guy that he had a bad breath now. Another strange action was he was brushing his teeth by his hand, actually by with his hand, actually with his index finger. Maybe he felt something stuck in his teeth, a piece of meat or a piece of fruit. He was looking for something, maybe a dental floss or toothpick to take it out. Then he hit the idea that he was pulling a thread from the woman standing next to him. The woman didn't know that her apron got comes off. The guy turned and looked at Mr. Bean because he was so weird. Mr. Bean distracted his attention away from him by pretending that he was coughing, and now the thread was still stuck in his teeth. He wanted to take it out, but he couldn't. It was too tight. He pulled it so hard, and he hurt himself. He was he was screaming and he sounded in pain. Finally, the thread got out of his teeth, and he gave the thread back the woman. But the woman didn't understand why he gave it to her and what would she use it for. So she threw it away. Mr. Bean thought that everything was to be perfect. But suddenly he realized that the man to his right, his left, he had a handkerchief in his chest pocket, but Mr. Bean didn't. So he was looking around, and everyone in line also had handkerchief in their pocket, in their chest pocket. He was so worried about that, but he's not stupid. He came up with a smart idea that he would rob the guy of his handkerchief. Then he tapped on his arm and lead to him that the queen was coming. Maybe he wanted to misdirect the man, but unfortunately he got caught in the act. Then he was trying to fix the man's handkerchief. He pretended that he was a Mr. Bean, but he was a smart one. he had another way. Immediately, he took he took out the paper or the postcard. I'm not sure. Then he's tearing it in half, and he pretend that uh, the piece of paper was the handkerchief, and he put it into his chest pocket, and the the piece of paper was looked like a real handkerchief. Mr. Bean wanted everything in his body to be perfect uh, before seeing the queen, so he checked everything, and he was shaking his hand, and all the finger was perfect, but except the middle fingernails. So he bited his middle fingernails by with his hand, his mouth. Then he thought that he could file down his fingernail by